You're watching HFO-TV.
Welcome back to HFO-TV. I'm Greg Frick, partner at HFO. Today I'm talking with Dave Moore. Dave Moore is CEO of Equity Advantage Incorporated. They're a 1031 specialist here located in Lake Oswego. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Dave, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your history in the company and we can kind of get into some of the hot topics.
Sure, it's sort of interesting actually in light of today's conversations down at the house in Salem, but my background is investment real estate. I grew up down in Santa Cruz, California, moved to Oregon in 1990 to buy property. And after we got here, we needed exchange work done and didn't really have a place to get it done, so we put a company, Equity Advantage, together in 1991, fall of 91. And then during the subsequent decades, I guess I should say, in that business, we had a lot of people coming to us wanting to use retirement funds to go buy real estate.
Right.
So we put a company called IRA Advantage together to handle 401ks and self-directed retirement accounts to primarily buy real estate. Some people buy notes, make loans, do business startups, but primarily it's real estate oriented.
Okay, good. All right. So I guess the hot topic we're just kind of got news last couple of weeks is House Bill in Oregon 3433 that wants to impose Oregon taxes on 1031 property exchanges.
Correct.
So kind of, tell me a little bit what you know about this. I know this is very, vital to your business.
Well, since 1991, this is the third time it's sort of been brought up, and each time I think what happens, we've got a new group of people voted in, and they come up with a great new idea to generate some tax revenues by eliminating the state treatment. This morning it was interesting listening to testimony because I think there's so much misunderstanding. There were two people that testified in favor of this bill, and they were both under the impression that if somebody were to generate a lot of gain in the state of Oregon, then exchange into, let's say, Washington as sort of an estate planning issue, their misbelief was that you could exchange into Washington state and in the future sell a property, eliminating all tax exposure in Oregon. Right. Well, that's not the case. Oregon keeps their hand sort of in the cookie jar and says, look, you're given that federal tax treatment, total tax deferral, but if there's a tax event in the future, you will be subject to the Oregon tax. So it's just, there's so much misunderstanding out there, and I really wish the people who put these things forward or talk in favor of them would really understand what they're dealing with.
Is this legislation coming up in other states as well, or is this?
No, right now Pennsylvania is the only state that has any state tax implemented. Arkansas did at one point, and Pennsylvania, they're looking at overturning it because what's happened is people just aren't going to invest there. And as I said, I grew up in the Bay Area. I moved here to buy property. If I had known that I was going to be subject to a state tax, we would not have bought in Oregon. We would have gone elsewhere. Why would any investor give up 10% of what they're making if they didn't have to? And when we're talking about one state that's going to eliminate, and if Oregon jumps on that, it's going to hurt us. And I think that people need to understand that sure, you might get a little bit up front, but there's going to be so much that just leaves the state or doesn't come into the state.
Yeah, initially, yeah.
Exactly. I don't know what percentage of your investors come in from out of the area, but I've got to guess there's a good number of them from California that do, and other states.
And we have a good number of them that are looking to get out of Oregon, just with this fear that, how are they going to alleviate that 10% tax on Oregon income? They're looking to retire. Do they go move to Washington? What do they do, and how do they plan their estate? So
exactly.
it is a big issue. Yeah. So I guess your thought is it's probably not going to pass.
Well, it sounds the Oregon Association of Realtors, their lobbyists are feeling pretty good about it. The conversation today, it was actually pretty good feedback from everyone. They're desperate for money, and I think the way they need to look at it is, encourage things to move along. If they can stimulate some liquidity to the market, they're going to be doing better. Imagine one transaction. Who makes money off that? Who makes revenue off one transaction? You've got obviously the brokers, the title escrow people, finance people, appraisers, attorneys, accountants, finance people. We're going to put ourselves in there. Home Depot, for goodness sake, the contractors. Yes. And I mean, if you look at our exchange volume over the last 5-6 years, we have really two major exchange companies in a region where we used to have maybe 5. And we're still probably clicking along at about 20% of our traditional volume. So that sort of tells you what kind of, this market is not hurling along. I mean, right. It's just starting to get back on track. And for them to implement something that's going to stagnate this market yet again is really a very short-sighted idea.
I mean, the goal is to create revenue long term. Yeah, you may get a short term blip, but long term, if you're not creating new revenue into the state, your tax base is going to go down. So
Certainly.
that there is the issue again. So
Yeah.
So are there any other kind of hot topics on 1031 exchanges that from people that maybe are familiar with them?
Well, I think people are doing more complex transactions. We've probably got the tightest timelines we've ever had. And what I mean by tight is sales and purchases happen very closely because you've got the ability to time a deal. You're happy to make things happen. So that's been something that came up. Right at the end of last year, we had a series of deals that normally were tax revenues, like a revenue neutral situation. We don't have the end of the year bump in business because people are not trying to do stuff. Well, last year we did with the Obamacare tax coming in, the non-tax tax, I guess I should say, and then with the increases in capital gains taxes, we had actually some transactions where our clients were scheduled to delayed exchanges into assets where the seller of that up leg had said, hey, I'm desperate, I need this deal to happen, 2012,
Yep.
and they actually paid our clients fees to do a reverse transaction instead of delayed exchange, which we're talking huge price differences there. They would pay our clients additional fees. Wow. They would actually even sell our carryback and elect against installment sale treatment to force sales in. So we had a couple of large transactions that happened that way right at the end of the year, an airplane deal. So that type of thing's happening. People are getting more creative. They're wanting to take money and maybe build on things that they already have. So we're seeing probably more reverses, more improvement exchanges, more complex transactions.
We had sellers that the motivation was there only if it closed in 2012, but how do they work with a buyer that may or may not have that same requirement?
Yeah. So imagine along those lines, imagine if we hear that Oregon's going to tax us starting 2014
Right.
on the state level, what's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
We might be real happy this
might be
year.
real happy short
So
term.
yeah, short term. Then I'm going to be moving.
Yes, yes. No, it's the same issue again. We'll have a uptick in transactions, and then what's going to happen long term. Which I actually thought we'd see more tax selling last year than we did. We did see an uptick third and fourth quarter with sellers saying, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of them just said, oh, even if capital gains does go up, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do an exchange. So we didn't see as much product that we came on, but it was an interesting year.
And it's something funny along those lines. People come into, they say, well, gee, you're an exchange company. Of course you want capital gains tax rates to go up. And really, historically, we've seen when the rates go up, volume starts slowing down. So, I mean, I don't benefit by having them go up. Now, it is true, people are not, they're either not going to sell or they're going to do an exchange. But I'm a much happier guy when the rates drop because it's going to stimulate that market, and some people want out, they can get out,
Exactly.
and everybody's getting out, somebody's going to buy it. So it's a much better situation for everyone. And I guess the other trend that we're sort of seeing, and you might be seeing it also, is some of the people with larger assets, maybe things where their equities evaporate over the last few years. They're downsizing the investment, getting rid of some of the debt, getting rid of the alligator and getting something that's more manageable size
Right.
for them. And that's a partial exchange. And I think a big misunderstanding is people think it's an all or nothing transaction when it's not. And I really encourage people, don't hide from a little tax, be comfortable with that, but get what you want out of it, and don't just buy this monster that you don't need or don't want to hide from that exposure.
Well, that's something we'll tell a lot of our clients. Don't make a decision solely based on taxes.
Certainly.
It's still got to be a good real estate deal. And again, like you said, there's a lot of people looking to downsize.
Yeah.
Maybe they do a partial exchange, but get the asset they want as opposed to continuing the process just to continue the process.
Certainly.
So when did somebody get in touch with you during the process? Hey, I decide I want to sell my asset. I've got my broker. We're going out to market. Is it at that point? Is it when it's under contract? When's the best time?
The earlier the better. I mean, and the reason I say that, and we've gone through transactions together. I mean, so often you think you're working with one person, you get a title report, and it's something totally different. So really, we'd like to talk to people early on. And you asked me when I'd like to talk to them. I'd like to talk to them when they buy the property in the first place,
Right.
just so that we make sure that they're going to own it in a manner that's going to allow them to get where they want to go in the future. So earlier the better. That way, if we've got some thing that's come up, we can sort of try to address it, get the tax and legal people involved if it's something that's going to, one of the big issues with exchanging is partnership issues. So, you know, you look at that ownership, the vesting of the property, what the person's selling, and you know, that's something that often things are done because of lending, or they're done because somebody has an idea it ought to be a certain way, and now we've got to go different directions because inevitably you buy everybody's great friends and then it changes, and so then we have to clean that up and give people the, you know, the ability to go different directions. It takes time, or at least it takes, you know, somebody has to be able to have conversations with the tax and legal people. It's nice that those happen before it's sitting there in escrow and I'm getting the call it's closing tomorrow. Yesterday I got a call from a guy that was frantic, he had a property that was closing yesterday, and he called us, I don't know, 9 in the morning. He's a doctor. He was in meetings. I didn't hear from him again until like noon. And I assumed it was a delayed exchange where he was selling that day. No, it was going to be the up leg of the a reverse exchange. So we would have had to do a whole bunch of work, obviously, to make it happen. And I just said, look, you know, this is what we're going to have to do to get it done. But, you know, that's a prime example of, you know, at least he called me before it closed, and we still get those.
Yes.
We still get calls after closings, and that's a tough one to take because somebody's, you know, you have to tell them, look, I'm sorry, it's too late.
Once it's closed, we're done.
Closed. It's closed. So as long as it happens beforehand, I'm okay. You know, it's just it might push things out a little bit.
When it's a partnership structure, the earlier the better. If there's ways that they have to change vesting, change title, let's get that involved early.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes,
certainly.
I know we've both run into that situation on a number of deals. So, well, thank you again for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been fun.
Oh, good. We all hope that the legislation does not pass, and we'll be able to continue doing business like we have been.
Oh, my pleasure. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Thanks. That was good. Very good.
Thanks for watching HFO-TV. To learn more about HFO, call or visit our website. See new listings, apartment news, videos, and more when you download our apps at the Android and iPhone markets.